Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing optimal employment. My guest is Bill Harrison. He's a spiritual entrepreneur, life coach, award-winning author, and public speaker. Bill, welcome to MoneyHeart.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, I'm glad to have you. You work with people who are in job transition. In what way is unemployment an opportunity?
Oh, yeah. Uh, that's one of the first things we try to tell people is you have the opportunity now to really think about who you are and why you're here, what your purpose is, which most people haven't given much thought to because they're too busy, job, family, whatever. But this is an optimum time to really, you've got the time. So instead of frantically trying to find any job, just because you're going to need some income, is to take your time and really think things through. And there are some things that will aid you in really figuring out, I like to say who you are and what your purpose really is. One thing we tell everybody is that you have a unique set of talents, abilities, experience, personality type that no one else in the world has.
Right.
And it's you are put together that way for a reason, and the reason is that particular set of skills and all is needed somewhere in the world. And so that should give you the confidence to know that you are worthwhile, that you have something to bring to the party. And it's just a question then of finding out where is the optimum place to be able to exercise those strengths and talents and the experience that you have in a place that is in keeping with your personality style, whether you like to work on teams or solo, or whether you like close supervision, or you like to be given an assignment and then given latitude to accomplish it in the way that you see best.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity to really think through that because most people have never really taken the time to do that. So that's really
Yeah.
kind of where we start with people is, hey, look at this as a great opportunity to really figure out what you want to do and why.
Yeah, we do tend to get really caught up in, we'll just do the thing and make the paycheck and get home and deal with the kids or keep the house going and, back and forth, back and forth. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's hard to get a chance to really reflect on
Hmm.
what would I love to do? What would be my favorite thing? What would get me up every morning without the alarm?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, years ago, I read a book. One of the things that kind of helped fashion the procedure that my wife and I came up with, it was entitled something to the effect of do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah, yeah,
And one
definitely.
thing you find out, I think, you mentioned in the intro there of making enough money, what you need. And one thing you find out is if the work that you're doing is satisfying and it's fulfilling some of the desire that you have to be productive to do something other than just earning a paycheck, you'll find that you don't need as much money to, try and make yourself happy on the weekends or whatever.
That's true. You don't have to spend a fortune on stuff that makes you not think about what you're doing during the week because you
Yeah,
actually
no,
like what you're
exactly.
doing during the week.
Right.
Mhm, mhm. What sort of tips or tools or exercises do you have to help people kind of figure that out?
Well, the two instruments that my friend Mike Shaw, who is a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I run our career transition support group that works with people that are in job transition.
Mhm.
And what we try to do is convince them they need to do Gallup the strengths assessment from a Strengths Finder, which the Gallup Institute, if you're familiar with them, does a lot of research
Mhm.
and polling and all, and they came up with a list of 34 strengths that are common throughout the world, and then the assessment rank orders your strengths, all 34, from 1 to 34, and then it concentrates on your top 5 and says that if you will do the best you can to leverage those to maximize your use of those strengths, you don't have to worry about the things that you don't have that you can't do. And what you need to do, though, if you need help in those areas, is go find someone who that is their strengths
Mhm.
and partner with them, instead of doing the Lone Ranger bit and saying. And the worst thing you can do is try and improve on the strengths that you really don't have.
Yeah, putting
So
all your effort into trying to create something that's just not you.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So that's part of it. The other thing that you can do is take this an assessment. It's called the Enneagram, which is something that's been around for hundreds of years, in various forms. And there's a number of different places you can take that assessment. It has 9 different personality types on it, and it tends to tell you what your primary personality types are, which speaks to how do you react to the outside world, to outside stimulants, and or to your internal uh, machinations, if you will.
Mhm.
So are you and that you can do other things like there are other tests that to determine whether you are an introvert or an extrovert and that sort of
Sure.
thing. But this is one that really gets more into uh, why you act the way that you do based on what your personality type is, your dominant personality type.
Mhm.
Because typically it's not just one. You have
Right.
one maybe primary one, but there are others that show themselves on occasion depending on the stress level that you're under, for instance.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the thing that we tell people is that there's an upside and a downside on both your strengths and your personality type.
Right.
And if you go to the negative side, if you go to the dark side, uh, then you can cause yourself a lot of trouble. And one thing Mike's noted, he said that during the pandemic here, that a lot of the people that he comes across have really gone to the negative side of their strengths.
Mm.
And so they are hurting themselves because they're not exercising their strengths properly about
Mhm.
how they should be leveraging them rather than either letting them fall into disuse or using the negative aspects of them. And the same
Right.
with personality type is depending on who you are and whether you're a outspoken kind of person or not. Whether you tend to view things positively and or whether you tend to have a more gloomy outlook on life and have to be convinced of things a lot more. So
Sure.
again, the more you understand about yourself,
Mhm.
better equipped you are to figure out what's really the optimum place that I should seek to be employed, whether you're looking to be hired by someone or whether you're looking for opportunities for self-employment, which so many people are doing these days.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, there's probably almost as many, if not as many, opportunities for contract type work these days as there is for becoming a permanent hire somewhere.
Mhm.
The uncertainty in so many industries and uh, the companies are loath to hire somebody on a permanent basis when they don't know how long they're going to need them. And
Right.
so they tend to do it more sometimes on a kind of on a project by project basis.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we want to bring you on and what you have to do there is try and negotiate a high enough rate that it covers all your incidentals, including both sides of your Social Security and insurance
Sure.
and things like that.
And maybe
And
gives
that's
you a
and
chance to put some aside so
yeah,
that when you're between contracts, you're
right.
okay.
Yeah. And if you're confident in your skills and your abilities and what you have to offer, then you can negotiate that because they really, if you have what they really want, then they should be willing to pay for it, particularly on a contract basis, because they know that if things turn south on them, that they just terminate it, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
move on to something else. Several of my friends are doing that now. That they're working, and of course they're doing the work from home kind of thing.
Right.
If your type of job is not one that you have to physically be there to accomplish it, the opportunities are really much greater than they've ever been before,
Mm-hmm.
due to things like Zoom, just the internet itself, and you can be in contact with people all over the world,
Yeah.
and sometimes doing work for individuals or companies that are on another continent from you.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I love that piece of where we are now. I've actually had a couple of guests from Canada on the show
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
we can, and we get introduced through various, networking people or events or friends, and next thing you know, here we are doing a project together. So yeah, it's
Well, I
great.
just had a rather lengthy conversation with a young lady in Perth, Australia,
Mm-hmm.
that is putting together she calls it it's not a seminar, well, a seminar, I guess,
Yeah.
on what she's calling conscious business, about trying to get people together to link people and then have some uh, interviews with people on how do you go about finding or creating a business that is not just for how much money I can make, but how much good can I do.
Yes.
So the other organization that I'm part of called ShiftCo, ShiftCo,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what their purpose is. Well, not exactly, because it's a little bit different because, for one thing, it's a networking group for conscious, primarily entrepreneurs, people that are starting their own business,
Mm-hmm.
or want to join a conscious business. And it provides mentoring and coaching and expert teaching on how to start one, how to advertise it, how to increase your demand, and then once you get it going, how to scale it up to the next level, all the
Mm-hmm.
way up to multi-million-dollar company if you're so inclined.
Nice.
So there's a lot of opportunities out there for people
Yeah.
that really and that if you and I tend to look on things on the positive side anyway. But if you're not bemoaning your loss and what you not able to do anymore, for whatever reason, and you start looking at what are the opportunities out there of things I could be doing with my skill set and my personality type, there's a myriad of opportunities out there that haven't existed before.
Right.
And so it's really a very positive time if you have a positive attitude toward that, and you expect to find something that is a good match for who you have discovered that you are and what your strengths really are. What your
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
other part of it is not only your strengths but your passions. What
Right.
do you really enjoy doing? What do you want to do? And I think that everybody is looking for to be valued, and they're also, I believe, more and more these days looking for meaning in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They,
I
they,
think you're right. I think people
there's
really
a
are.
reason for doing what they're doing, for being here, and then for doing what they're doing.
Right. I
Okay.
love that concept too of if you can if you can find a way to get out of the woe is me sort
Hmm.
of mode that happens to us all when we lose a
Oh,
job or
sure.
we have to close a business or whatever thing happens that we weren't really wanting to have happen, and figure out how you can recover, and not just recover but really thrive afterward,
Yeah. Well,
and
it's
see opportunity.
losing a job is like in some ways it's like losing a member of the family or
Hmm.
a good close friend or whatever. There's a grief process that goes
Right,
on,
right,
and you have to realize that. And everybody grieves differently and for different periods of time. But you have to get to a point that you can convince yourself that there's nothing I can do about the past, but I need to be looking to the future, and I need to be looking at it in a positive manner as to, okay, that's over and done with. What can I do now?
right,
And
right.
that's really the theme of the second book that I wrote after my wife passed away is, okay, why am I still here?
Hmm.
Because everything that we did for 50, almost 54 years, we did jointly
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
with each other's advice and consent, if you will, and did that very, very successfully. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, she's gone. So what do I do now?
Right.
And
Right. So I love the story of how you and your wife met that you shared with me. Will
oh
you
yeah,
share that with us?
well that was just one of those things that you never know. We, as I've told you before, we met initially on a blind date.
Hmm.
She was going to a college a little bit about 40 minutes or so north of Dallas. I was a couple of hours south down in Austin at University of Texas. And so we had a couple of dates and thought, yeah, okay. We weren't all that impressed and didn't figure we'd ever see each other again because she was heading north and I was going south.
Hmm.
And then that fall, one of the big events on the University of Texas, well, not on the campus, but in UT Life, was the University of Texas, University of Oklahoma football game in Dallas every year.
Hmm.
And it was big party time. And I found out at the last minute what I don't remember the details, but my date fell through. And at that particular point in time, I was happened to be the president of the local chapter of my social fraternity.
Mm.
So it was a very awkward position to be in to not have a date for Texas OU. And so out of desperation, I called Mary and asked if she'd like to go. And there weren't that many folks from her school up there that had the opportunity to go, so she jumped at the chance,
Hmm.
not to see me, but to go to the
To go
party.
to the big event. Yeah,
Yeah, and that weekend was the fall in love kind of thing that we realized that hey, we really liked each other and we wanted to keep it going,
yeah. Hmm.
which for the first semester almost really had a bad effect on our grades because we were up and down the road all the time trying to see each other rather than
Yeah.
concentrating on our studies. So the following year, she transferred down to University of Texas,
Make
so
things easier, huh?
we didn't have all the travel in there.
Yeah.
And I guess it was about 6 months after that we ended up getting married.
Hmm.
So life's funny sometimes.
Yes, yes, it is. Now I know that you told me that, the two of you were able to be successful in your careers and put aside money for retirement and
Mhm.
travel and put your child through school and all of that kinds of things. So can you
And the wedding. That
and
was
pay for her wedding? Yes, which is a big one.
aside from school, that was the single biggest expense. And once we got her married off, then our expenses dropped dramatically.
Yes, they do. They tend to do that. I have two daughters, so I feel you. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was
Well, you are responsible for most of the wedding costs if you are the bride's parents.
and we are. So, but fortunately, they're still teenagers, so maybe I have a couple years before I have to worry about that too much.
Well, one thing for me, I found out at this point. Actually, I found out before my wife passed away, but after I retired in 2010, I decided that what I needed to be doing was to working with people that were having to change jobs, and as in my case, actually change industries, whether change careers, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to move from aerospace industry to commercial industrial construction and then to commercial real estate, and to rather seamlessly transition from one to the next, although there was a pretty steep learning curve there, and I had to kind of set back from where I was and then build back up again. But that's where the concept of spiritual entrepreneurship came from, was that you have to be willing to leave your comfort zone, what you're comfortable with, what you know you can do, what you've been doing, due to whatever the circumstances are, and launch out into the unknown, more or less, and find
Mm-hmm.
out, where else can I go, what can I do,
Right.
and put feet to it. Keep trying till you make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to do that actually twice in my career.
Right.
And during that time, I had a couple of different periods where I was unemployed for 6 months. In one case, I was self-employed for a year with zero income. And so it's when people are looking for advice, they prefer to go to somebody that's been there and done that and survived it.
Yes. Yes, that's
I thought
huge.
that's really what I should be doing, because I've been there, I've done that. I know it's survivable, and I know that you can be positive about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, fortunately, we had put enough away for retirement that I've been able to do that for the last 10 years pro bono. I haven't needed any income from the consulting. I can offer that to people at no cost. So,
What
uh,
a wonderful way to be able to give back.
yeah,
You know,
well, it's there's no burden on my shoulder to make this thing profitable. Although the organizations I'm involved with now, we try to do that for people, to say you can replace your income doing what you really want to be doing, what your passion is, where your talents and abilities take you,
mm-hmm.
and you can make a living doing that, and do quite well. And we've got many examples of people that have done that and are much happier now than they were before they launched out and tried it.
Right.
And the second part of spiritual entrepreneurship, then, or the first part of the title anyway, is that if you're doing that with, if you recognize who you are as a child of God,
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that He has good plans for you, you'll find out that if you try to follow His leading in where to go and what to do, and understanding who you are, that it's going to be much better than what you thought you had planned out for your life. And that certainly was true for us for well over 50 years. We ended up, as I said in the book, we ended up going places and doing things, places we never expected to go, and accomplishing things we had no idea we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what you have to do to find your optimal employee. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone, to reach out, to learn as much about yourself as you can, and then follow that path. And if you're in touch with your inner guidance, if you want to call it that, it's going to keep you out of trouble. And what it goes back to is, anything that you're looking at or anything you're considering, does it fit in with your understanding of what you're all about, and what God's all about, and what his wishes are for you, which are for good.
We were just talking about this in a group that I'm part of the other day, about all of the things that, if it would have turned out the way I wanted it to turn out, it would have been way worse than what actually turned out.
Right,
So,
right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
we think we know
Exactly.
what we want and what we need, and we're all upset when something doesn't go our way. And a couple years down the road, we can look at that and go, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I didn't get my wish, because
Yeah.
everything that I got now is way better than what
I
I
knew
thought."
back in at least junior high school that I wanted to get a degree in, at that time, aeronautical engineering, which became aerospace engineering by the time I got to college,
Hmm.
and have a career, building aircraft, being involved in that.
Yeah.
That only lasted 7 years before that opportunity vaporized on me. And I've never really looked back.
Yeah.
I really felt like that's what I wanted. And I've kept a real strong interest in that industry and follow what's going on. And I'm really fascinated by all of the things that have happened in the last 20 or 30 years. You know, the man on the moon, trips to Mars, and all the well, the just physical travel for people. You know, jet travel for people, which
Hmm.
that ended up enabling us to my wife and I to travel all over the world.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, relatively, well, I won't say inexpensively, but affordably,
Hmm.
because that was one of our passions. It was something we really wanted to do, is to find out, you know, how the other half lives. And
Sure.
that ended up being a real bonus, particularly for my wife, who taught marketing and international business.
Hmm.
You know, I've been there and I've seen how they do things, and here's what you need to do if you want to operate in that arena versus, you know, what you're familiar with.
Right.
And so we never were able to write off any of our travel expenses, but she did put them to really good use in a lot of her classes. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point too, that that was something that was important to the both of you. So
mhm.
you found a way to make sure you were able to do it. Because again,
Yeah,
you were
and
working in the things you cared about and
yeah,
making the stuff that was important to you happen.
yeah. And fortunately, we started that real early in our marriage. I think, if I remember correctly, the summer after we got married, we made our first automobile trip in the
Mm.
U.S. and, you know, enjoyed that and started doing that and drove as far as we could, and then started uh, you know, buying a plane ticket to some place and getting there, getting a rental car and exploring all over. And we managed to hit all 50 of the United States. And then we figured out that it really wasn't much more to travel to Europe. And
Mm.
our first trip way
Hmm.
back in 86, 87, somewhere back in there,
Hmm.
and loved that so much that we ended up going, I think, to 60 something different countries,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
taking that opportunity while we were still young enough and healthy enough and had the income to be able to do it,
Hmm.
rather than, you know, working for 25, 30 years or more at a job we hated, to make enough money to do what we really wanted to do, to travel the world,
Yeah.
and then not having the health to do it when we got to retirement.
Right. Yeah.
So we said, hey, we want to do it. Let's do it now.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad it worked out.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
It really did. That was something we had, you know, all of that was things we never really expected.
Hmm.
She never really expected to be able to be a university professor at a major state university,
Hmm.
or to do the other things that she was able to do, to work in the telecommunications industry and learn all about that.
Yeah.
So those opportunities came because we made the decision way back in 1973 to leave my job, my industry, to move to another state so she could start her career, and for me to find another career,
Hmm.
which fortunately in that first go around, it only took, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 months before I was able to find employment and start a whole new career, which ended up lasting 25 years or more for me in
Yeah.
commercial industrial construction.
I love how you say first go round. I think that's really inspiring to people to know that you might need to reinvent a couple of times as you learn and change and grow
Yeah.
and figure out what's really important to you. You might make a couple of tweaks along the way.
Well, the other question that always comes up is, how do you overcome the fear factor?
Right.
And
Yes.
because making that first step, that first time stepping out is very stressful.
Yes.
And we stressed over that a good bit, and then finally said, "No, we're doing it," and bit the bullet and made the move and got started.
Hmm.
And the first year or two that we lived in Louisiana, I kept asking myself, "What am I doing here? Why do we do that?"
Yep.
But it ended up working out great, and I got opportunities to do things I had wanted to do back in the aerospace industry, getting into project management that I probably never would have gotten, or it would have been a long time before I ever got that opportunity where I had been,
Mm-hmm.
because the industry was really changing. But I got that opportunity within a year after we made that move.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you
Yep.
know, you
Once
never know,
again, you don't know how it's going to turn out
you never know till you try. And
till you try.
and
Yeah.
one other move when we moved to Virginia that didn't work out that well, but we learned from it. And I
Right.
think that's, you can't be afraid of making a mistake, so long as you learn from it and don't, repeat that same mistake over and over.
That's right. Go make a new one. Right.
Yeah. And that's it, really the reason we ended up writing the first book that we wrote together is, hey, let's tell people what our experience has been, what we learned from that, and the mistakes that we made, so that they can make their own mistakes instead of repeating the mistakes that we made.
That's right. Just cross those off the list.
Yeah,
Already know what happens.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway, it
this
was
has
it
been,
was it was a great ride
yeah.
for more than 50 years.
Hmm.
And I'm having the time of my life now because I'm not worried about income, even with what's invested in the stock market keeps going up and down. So just watching that again today, it's taken another dive, but it's not enough to really affect things that much. The way that we ended up getting it invested on some very good advice a number of years ago,
Hmm.
and if worse comes to worst, I'd have to figure out how to live on Social Security and one little pension that I've got from one of the companies that I worked at. Out of all the places that I worked, there's only one of them that ended up with a pension, and they ended up going bankrupt. So that's actually coming from the government, from the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation.
Yeah.
So if worse came to worst, I could just, if the stock market totally collapsed, I would have to just live on what the government provided and hope that the government doesn't go bust, which, if that happens, we're all in a world of trouble.
It's going to be a different world if that happens. That's true.
I would have to make some pretty significant lifestyle changes if it got down to that.
Right.
But it's survival. It can be done. And
Hmm.
I expect to make it through whatever's going on.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love the positive attitude that you have. Thank you so much
Well,
for
it
sharing
makes all
it with
the
us.
difference. No, if you expect that, I'm going to get through this COVID-19 crisis. I just got my second vaccine shot
Hmm.
yesterday. So
Hmm.
I'm feeling pretty good about that. So we're going to get through that, and things are going to be a lot different when the dust settles. But there's going to be all sorts of opportunities out there that we should be able to jump on if we're looking for them, and
Right.
if we've got the guts to step out and try it.
That's right. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All righty, my pleasure.
Yeah. Bill Harrison can be reached via email at wmcharrison@verizon.net. His books that are currently out are Spiritual Entrepreneurship, Fulfilling Your God-Ordained Destiny, and Traveling Solo, But Never Alone, Surviving and Thriving After the Death of a Spouse. Both of those are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through his website, spiritual-entrepreneurship.com. On the website, there's also a page to his career transition support group. They meet on the first and third Wednesdays via Zoom, and they also have many shared resources for those in need that they can be accessed through the website.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you as well to all of our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. This show is sponsored by Serenity Financial, a Five Rings financial agency specializing in financial education, living benefits, and guaranteed lifetime income. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart on social media at MoneyHeart Show and on our website, moneyheartshow.com. Today's money mantra provided by Bill is discover your optimal employment and you'll have all the money you need.
Thank you very much, Camille.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.